We have now the first of our panels. We've got two panels in a row, and our first panel is on Web2 or Web3 gaming. Who is going to survive? And that's moderated, I believe, by Jason Scott from a podcast company. So I'll invite him to come to the stage and introduce his three panelists.
Cool. Hi there, everyone. Thank you for staying, especially after that fantastic presentation earlier from audio. As someone in the podcasting world, I thought it was incredibly interesting how we're using audio. I had a million questions, but I also thought if I asked them, I'd cut this entire thing down to about 10 minutes, which we don't want. I'm Jason Scott. I am the CEO and founder of a company called a podcast company. I've built and sold several companies on 3 continents now, most recently a marketplace, Airbnb for spaces and creative places. And I became obsessed with the idea of what blockchain, crypto, Web3 could bring to business, the idea of ownership, the idea of assets, the idea of moving things around through a community and giving power back to a community. And I originally did a podcast with someone from PlayEmber, I think with John Hook. And he really sort of got me excited about the big jumps between Web 2 and Web 3, which then got us into a conversation. And he said there was an opportunity to ask a bunch of people far smarter than me about this exciting industry and what's happening between Web 2 and Web 3. I'm going to quickly go through some questions that we found through our audience Q&A of the podcast. We have 87,000 listeners, and we just asked them, what do you want to know? What's interesting to know? But I'm going to leave about 10 minutes at the end so you can ask your questions, because you've probably got far better questions than they do. They listen to my show. They can't be that smart. I also have written down the questions. So I think we'll begin by just introducing everyone, if that's okay. We'll start at the far end, no favoritism, and then work our way towards me. Please.
Thank you, Jason. I'm Hugo from PlayEmber. So probably a year and a half ago, we were a purely Web2 mobile gaming studio. Kind of really successful, more in the hyper-casual space and kind of going into hybrid casual. But about 9 months ago, we kind of made the step into Web3. Certainly like a really light Web3, all about kind of the on-ramp and onboarding of Web2 people, Web2 to Web3. And that's PlayEmber.
Fantastic.
Hi everybody, my name is Benas and I'm co-founder and CEO of BlockGames. BlockGames is a Web3 mobile games publisher focusing primarily on casual mobile games publishing. We founded this together with Stati, which is a name some of you might know, and that we're focusing on NFT-enabled casual mobile games, also known by one of our signature titles, Shatterpoint, which is coming into the market in a few months.
Hi, my name's Anil. I'm co-CEO at First Light Games. We are the makers of a game called Blast Royale, and that's actually a Web3 mobile battle royale game that's live on the app stores right now with NFT integration. We got through Apple, pretty challenging, but yes, we did it.
Well done. Should we stop and let everyone download the game?
And hello, so my name is Goncalo. I'm the VP of marketing at BoomBit. BoomBit is a mobile game publisher. We focus on upper casual, mid-core, casual. We have a big portfolio. We also start our blockchain branch, so it's called Boomland. But I think here I'll be more like the Web2 expert, and I'll leave Web3 more for you guys. Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. According to recent studies, the average gamer spends $58,000 in a lifetime of playing games. Web3 promises this opportunity to utilize that investment in other things, yet there's still this really difficult adoption between Web 2 and Web 3. I thought I'd start with that question and work it way across from Web 2, talking about the benefits, all the way to Web 3 and why that's better.
Yeah, of course. I mean, looking firstly at Web 2, of course, it's much easier for us, especially on the user acquisition monetization side, to track them, to advertise to them, to get those users. And I mean, we all are aware of traditional user acquisition, traditional marketing, so I'm not going to really go into that. I'm just going more into what has been like the big challenges for us on the Web3 side of BoomBit. And I think we need to focus on 2 things. One is definitely like building the community, and right now I'm talking as well on the user acquisition side, how hard it is, or it's much harder to target the users and understand when they are acquired to the communities, either if it's Twitter or Discord, So building a community on Web3 is slightly harder as there is no that granularity that you get on Web2. You can just run a campaign, you get the user clicks, you acknowledge that you got that user. So one of the biggest challenges has been, for example, on Discord, trying to understand when is a user actually been acquired from a user acquisition campaign. But at the same time, I think a lot of companies, what they're doing right now is maybe on the Web2 side, on the games, that's mobile games on the Web2 side, try to create a big and decent daily active users. And then within the game, try to connect more wallets, try to convert more users within the game. So I think right now, especially focus on the user acquisition side, these are the only two things we can really do. Try to acquire for the communities, or the other way around, try to develop a big amount of daily active users on the Web2 games, and then within the game, try to convert to Web3.
Gotcha.
I think Web3, the spirit of it is to be decentralized and to kind of share learning, which is quite new compared to Web2. So I think I'll drop a few knowledge bombs today that I think people appreciate. So I think question number one, does adding Web3 to your game increase your revenues? Yes, it does. If you add Web3 to your game, is that revenue cannibalistic to your IAP revenue? No, it's not. If you add Web3 to your game, does it decrease your CPIs? Yes, it does. So these are really good information. Is it hard to get people who are regular Web2 players to convert to Web3? Oh God, yes. Almost impossible. Huge challenge for the industry. So these are some really exciting things. I think that's what's probably going to frame things going forward. It's like a huge opportunity if people can get on board and learn quickly. I think probably where we are right now with kind of Web3 ecosystem in games, I think in 5 years' time we'll look back at what we're doing and laugh at ourselves and think, I can't believe we thought that would work. But that's what it takes. It was the same case in free-to-play. Like, loot boxes weren't there to begin with, and then one person invented it and was like, oh my God, this is insane. Or putting mobile ads in it. So, yeah, I think it's really exciting to see what's going on. I think it will be a very challenging year. I think one thing I didn't mention there is that recent events in the Web3 world, like our good friend Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX.
Nobody's friend. Nobody's friend.
Means there's a real challenge, and there is. I have to say, the Val game, when we first announced it, a lot of people said, "Oh, really cool looking game." A crypto game. They weren't so interested, so that's the big challenge. But there's a lot of benefits to going there, and I think for us it was like a big thing of there's a hypothesis: is can you even get Web2 people interested in Web3? You can, and I think that is the touch point for like lighting the dynamite.
I actually very much agree to the points mentioned, as what Anil just mentioned. How do you get people into the pre, and how do you get them interested, which are used to traditional games, and what's that selling point? And I think the challenge is among a lot of builders in the space is that they are focusing a lot on highlighting crypto stuff in their games, and the thing is that mainstream population don't really care what chain the game is built on, what is a wallet. We don't even know what is a wallet, and why would we need to save a secret phrase? So the approach that builders are having to overcome is how to hide it and how to focus on creating a communication angle, which is very much kind of like soft to the traditional players, and traditional players really understand the benefits which are coming out from integrating the free parts into your game. So that's where kind of like the main challenges are at the moment, and has been a lot of downside from recent events, and of course a lot of experimentation. PlayTurn didn't do a lot well in over the last year, and we're still yet to see what that model is going to look like, but definitely changing the communication part and avoiding direct confrontation with Web3 technology across your games is probably going to do well. So we're still yet to see.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, we've started to do some kind of beta tests that I think show this. So we were calling stuff like NFTs or sign up for a wallet, changed it to, okay, you can get a collectible, and then kind of more people started converting, and then, okay, it's not a wallet, it's a hub. It's kind of a gaming hub, and then again, kind of conversion. So yeah, I think it's a weird one, but I think the more you hide it, the better it is, and I think that kind of soft approach will do really, really well, where people think, like, okay, yeah, this is a wicked game, and then kind of find out, oh, it's okay, it's run on Web3 tech. I think that's probably the best way to go about it.
One of the questions from the audience from Not Another Crypto Show was, why do we care if it's a Web 2 or a Web 3 game, right? The importance is, are my friends playing? Is it fun to play? And am I going to be bombarded with ads? That was the first sort of 3 questions we got. What are your answers to that? And sorry, and the last one, which I think is quite important, is why has no one gamified the idea of understanding why Web 3 is even important in the gaming landscape? Anyone? Total open question.
Maybe I can go. I think like games are social platforms. They are created for people to have fun and socialize with their friends. And Web 2 and Web 3, there is no difference. It's the exact same game. I think what the difference on the Web 3 side is that you have this technology which allows you to make some of the assets in-game as NFTs and reward them for free to players. And what happens with this at this moment is that you're creating a narrative that you're inviting gamers to become co-owners of your games, because you're not aggressively monetizing them, but you're giving them something back, which is worth some monetary value, which is of course set by the entire player base on how they see that value. And this allows you to change the narrative and bring those benefits in your game, not only by reducing the CPI, but of course by extending retention metrics. And also, once you are introducing these digital collectibles across your games, you are able to create these unique storytelling experiences, what you just mentioned. There are a lot of people which are trying to gamify that. I think one good example would be Hugo Labs, that some of you might know by the Bored Ape Yacht Club brand. And what we are experimenting is through skill-based minting experiences, which allows players to engage in free-to-play experiences, get some assets, combine them, merge them, get something else, and that's gamified from my point of view.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that. That's a really cool example. I think community building is definitely one of the big perks of Web3. I would say that the regular players, they really do not care about Web3 at all, even to the point of, actually owning your own asset instead of having it owned to the game account, meaning that you can sell it and trade with other players. Players don't care. That is sort of a mistake that we thought that would be like a big sales pitch, and really it isn't. And I think if you're trying to use that as your kind of selling point, forget about it. That's not what they're interested in. I think we also have to be realistic and say that like one of the big promises of NFTs, and why we're probably all here, is Axie Infinity went literally to the moon. And one of the reasons it went to the moon is that people could make money playing a video game. In my day, I had to pay money to play video games in the arcade in the Trocadero, so that's quite the game changer. And that is one reason why, CPIs for that game, were 0, because they got all these people playing for free. And I think we have to be realistic and understand that that element is still something that people are very interested in. I would say there's a game that millions of people play every day. It's called the stock market, and the purpose of this game is to make more money than you start out with. I don't do too well at this game, to be honest. So I think these aspects do need to be incorporated, and I think again it kind of likens back for like game makers, sort of back to free to play when it first started, that you had to completely reconfigure your economy designs, because it's not a game that you give all away at once. You have to be able to like get people to go along all the way. So kind of talking about sort of gamification, the thing is let's be honest, one of the reasons a lot of people buy NFTs in the game is they think the value of these NFTs will go up. If your game, then the NFTs do not go up in value, people think that your project is a failed project, it's not going to work, then you start getting FUD, kind of people not really liking the product, and it can fall apart. So it's very, very volatile, it's crypto. So these are things that I think we have to bear in mind. But I think that the potential is definitely there, but we are still quite a few years away before we get sort of mainstream audiences really understanding in it being second nature, although I personally feel that I've seen enough already to suggest that will happen.
So I'd like to ask you a question on that. And perhaps I'll ask that question first. What do you think will it take for that mass adoption to come in? Obviously with mobile games, we saw that with, I think Candy Crush was probably the big changer. Everyone jumped over, even though hardcore gamers didn't consider that a real game, but it got people to play on their phone. Axie Infinity, we mentioned as well, was that sort of game that everyone started talking about, but there still hasn't been that mass adoption from one to the other. What do you each believe it'll take to create that mass adoption moment?
I mean, on my side, I honestly think that as well, Apple and Google stores, they have a big role here, right? At least looking on my side, I think that the fact that there is so much friction and actually is not that open from the Apple Store, from the Google Play, it creates a lot of blockage as well. I think me, as a regular player, maybe not as Web3 enthusiast as all of you, that's the first moment, or that's the door to all the games, right? It's the App Store. Even though if I'm curious, or if I know nothing about Web3 and I want to know a bit more and go into it, it's impossible to go now to the App Store and just start playing a game that is completely like NFT based and blockchain based. So that definitely needs to change for a lot of things to be much more normal and usual, and even for developers to be able to work even more on the games. But it's just a very basic look on my side, so once again.
Yeah, I agree. I think ease is a huge one. Ease for developers and ease for users. Probably 6 months ago, and it's come on so much, but 6 months ago it was so complicated to set up a wallet, and you kind of think, God, actually, who would do this? What's the point? But now it's easier, and I suppose perhaps getting a little bit less decentralized, but you can like sign up with Facebook account, Google account, and I think these are all good things for ease of onboarding. And then ease from a developer side. Again, 12 months ago, kind of when we started out, super tough, and you're kind of doing stuff that people haven't done before, or not many people have done before, which is really exciting, but also you can't look on Stack Overflow or go on YouTube to kind of figure it out. So I think, once that's kind of there, the ease from the development side will really help as well.
Please.
Yeah. So my take is that there is a topic of decentralization among the Web3 community, but what it takes for mainstream to adopt it is that we all have to trust in the UX, and that decentralization aspect needs to be hidden in the UX. That we sign up into our game with a single SSO, with our Meta account or Google Connect, and there's a wallet created underneath that, which user doesn't even interact with creating a wallet, and then they jump into the game and we are experiencing the benefits of what that Web3 technology is bringing. So I think there's still a lot of infrastructure play, which still needs to be invested and developed a lot, and there are a lot of great companies already offering solutions to that. And a lot of content companies creating IPs with those solutions. So I think this year we will see a much more bigger adoption as a lot of those games are going to be coming out with such solutions integrated.
Okay, so I'm going to give a hot take. I actually don't think the accessibility is that important. I think it all matters about the game. At some point, someone will make a badass game that is such a phenomenon, like a Fortnite, a Clash of Clans, something like that, that every kid will want to play it and it'll be cool. And that's what's going to drive mass adoption. And examples I would give of this is like the Nintendo Wii had grandmas and granddads playing Wii tennis. I know the UX was good, but it was a phenomenon. Things will happen like this. If something is cool, I remember, for example, being a kid who couldn't play Grand Theft Auto, but we found a way to play it. It doesn't matter if you're 18 or not. If it's hip, we'll find out a way. And actually, we've seen in our own community that what happens is that when first people didn't understand how to connect a MetaMask wallet, now when new people join, there's this kind of feeling of being cool. But I can show you how to do it, and now I get this kind of kudos. Oh wow, look at this master guy, he can explain to me how this works. Don't worry buddy, I got you. Here's how you connect your wallet. Oh, you want an NFT? I'll loan you mine. And that actually makes it this kind of cool hip thing that other games don't have. So at some point in time, you're going to have Call of Duty and Call of Duty that's on the blockchain. And if they're both equally good in game quality, the blockchain version will win, even if it's impossible to set up a wallet. So in my opinion, the thing that I would focus on the most is not actually really accessibility. I think that's obviously going to help, but game quality is the most important thing. And right now, to be honest with you, most blockchain games suck. So we need to have at least one or two that are genuinely amazing games. Forget the NFTs. That's the most important thing that's required.
I'm really glad you said that, because that segues exactly into my next question. The average audience member we asked said most Web3 games suck. Like, that was it. It was an end question. We were like, but how do they suck? And they were like, well, they're just not good enough. They seem rushed. The roadmap says this, and they never seem to get there. There's all these promises in the beginning, and there's great Discord, and there's great community, and then what's given is a joke. Why is that? Is there a rushed feeling because of the gold mine ability of there's gold in them hills, go and get the money, get it now, too late, like an avocado?
Yeah, it's something we've been, I think that is the case, the kind of the gold rush. We've been talking a lot internally about, I think there are two different types of blockchain game, kind of a normal kind of good game, and then GameFi, kind of gamified finance. And I think for like the Web3 degens, PFPs, kind of collectors, GameFi is actually what they want. And yeah, people are kind of saying, oh, that these are Web3 games, and I think actually it's more GameFi gambling. But actually they kind of want those really quick results. And I think actually for that small segment of the market, which maybe kind of the Web3 whales, they perhaps don't actually want a game that would be fun to play and you play for half an hour and then get your reward, whereas I think perhaps they actually just want their reward.
Good answer.
Yeah, again, very much agree. Last year was very much of a gold rush. Play to earn, Axie spiked. Everybody was getting into Web3 gaming, trying to replicate a game, replicate a model, which was clearly not working. And a lot of studios pulled out. Some of them not delivering, leaving a lot of FUD created among the community by not being able to, by being bought into the project, but the project not delivering up to the expectations. Although on the other side, there are a lot of newly established, talented teams which came from Web2 world who know how to build games, and we understand that it takes not a year to build a good, successful, engaging game, but multiple years. And when you go into mid-core and so on, it's optimization. And there are a lot of teams right now building those games, and we haven't seen yet. Those games haven't seen yet a light, and we're still yet to see how those will be coming out. And there are some great games on this panel. Passing over to Anil.
I owe you £10 for that, thank you. But I would say it does take time to make great games. I would actually admit that our game was rushed, but we did that intentionally because we wanted to learn as fast as possible. I think that's something that people aren't taking into account. That again, we're free to play, people launch games, but to begin with, it was the wild, wild west, and people didn't understand what did and didn't work, and it took years of understanding how to make great core loops, how to get a good retention, live operations, how to master that. There's going to be an entirely new different playbook for NFTs and blockchain games, and we don't even know what that is yet. That's going to come out in a few years' time. So I think it is going to take time, but I would also say that just making a great game in general is hard. Like, how many games have you worked on in your life, and then how many of those games actually are like a household name? You know, if you get 1 in 10, that's quite a good ratio in my opinion. I'm talking about genuine sort of like, you know, tens of millions of copies sold, or, you know, 100 million a year revenues. So, you know, there's not that much of a hit rate. So to make a good game is hard, to integrate blockchain is harder, to put both of them together is even harder still. So it's like kind of playing Elden Ring on New Game Plus with one hand. It's a challenging aspect. But I think there's so many people doing it that it will eventually happen, and then we'll have a playbook to follow.
Yeah, I mean, nothing to add, because, you know, even when you do look at Web2 games, the ones that are the most known for being like the shitty games are hyper casual, right? The very, very easy to play, not a lot of development there, and still it takes at least 2, 3, 4 months to have a proper build that is live, it's launched, it gets several thousands of downloads. And a lot of studios and a lot of projects, they are not even 6 months old. Maybe there are some with 1 year old, but to do a proper like mid-core, proper casual game, you need 1 year, 2 years to start even like launching it. And then as soon as you start having the ops team, the monthly passes, it takes years and years. So it's doing that plus adding the blockchain technology that it's probably changing every day. People are learning new things every day. That's why the Web3 games nowadays are not as amazing as probably Web2.
In startup culture, a lot of us follow this Bible called blitzscaling, right? This idea that we get as many people as possible, and all your PE, your private equity, or your venture capitalist, or vulture capitalist is interested in is how many people are playing, how many people are on your network, how many people is this connecting with, and you lose sight of everything else until you get to a point where you realize you have all these people, all this stuff, you're not making any money, so you shut down, you sell out to some wonderful Eastern European person who gives you way too much money to run away and disappear, and then they break you up in parts. Is that the same in games? Is it all about how many players can we get, and then we'll work out a business model? Or do you start right in the beginning, because it's blockchain and because it's crypto, and go, let's work up the business model, then let's build the game, then let's find the community? Because the benefit, I assume, with Web3 and with blockchain games is you only need a small amount of people to be able to make it work. You don't need millions. It's like a podcast. I only need 1,000 people, and I've got a 6-figure business. I can't do that with a TV show. Same thing I would assume with Web2 and Web3. How correct and how off the mark am I?
Yeah, I mean, once again, going a bit Web2, the good thing about Web2 is that what you said is not just 100% right, because I can track all the users that I'm getting. So even if I'm getting 10 users, 1,000 users, a million users, I know, or I should know, that the users that I'm acquiring, they will be profitable for me on average basis, of course. And that's maybe the issue with Web3, or the difficulty with Web3, is that let's see what they say and what's their comment, but maybe building a community, it's definitely the first step, because you do need to have a good game and a good idea, but building the community is the first step that doesn't have a guarantee of profitability in the future. It can become a huge thing, but at least on Web2, when you do user acquisition, when you do the monetization, when you launch a game, you should at least be able to know that each user that you are getting, even if it's from a tier 3 country, tier 1 country, is going to generate profitability. So here I think it's the biggest difference, and it's the biggest challenge for Web3.
I would say, to answer your question, yes, I get asked all those questions. How many DAU, how many MAU, how many connected wallets, what's the baseline price of your NFTs, how much transaction volume, etc., etc. So yes, they ask all those questions, and that's what they want to know. How quickly can you scale it up? How many players you've got? Is it going up or is it going down? I would disagree with one thing you said though, which you said that you only need like a few thousand people to make a successful Web3 game. I strongly disagree with that. That's not going to be the future. There are a few projects that do that, but those people, degens as we call them, they're just holding these items to look to make more money. So they're not your real fans. They're just going to sell as fast as they can to make a profit and then move on. Quick anecdote, we had one person that gamed our free mint. They got 180 of the NFTs in the game. Then they set up their own bot farm to get the secondary token to grind it, and their bots play 6,000 games a day combined across them, and they're involved with every game. They're trying to do this just to make money. And we can see all this because on the blockchain it's immutable and you can follow it, and we've got a really good analytics lead to kind of find that out. So I think it's like all games. The games that are going to be most successful are probably going to have millions of players. I think the one exception is you probably can make a blockchain 4x game, and then the revenues that you could make of that could be an order of magnitude greater than they are already, which is crazy given that these games are buying players at like, $80 CPI at one point in time.
Yeah, I very much agree with the points already mentioned. I think also one way to take a look into this is that a successful Web3 project needs to take into account traditional Web2 aspects of those KPIs, which everybody measures, but also making it happen through the Web3 landscape of community building and how strong your community is to support those NFT launches or NFT mints for your community, and being able to do good on both fronts, which is pretty difficult. But speaking about the community aspect, community definitely comes as the first launch, which you can then use that community to generate feedback into the early prototypes, which you're bringing back in. And that community is so vested into your project and into the success of that project that we start pulling in other people from outside. We also are very eager to provide feedback and make this a success together with you. So we are your co-owners, we are like your stakeholders, with whom you are making this game work, and you can pivot that game to left or right, and I think that's the best out of it. But also that community successful launch becomes the backbone of your future NFT game economy, which builds out as you launch the game and as you start distributing more and more NFTs in your game.
Out of 6,291 correspondents, 33% said, we don't play Web3 because we're super scared of being scammed. And although we've mentioned SBF, maybe the real person we should mention is Logan Paul. Crypto Zoo, a Web3 game that's fun to play, that you can make money off. The exact words, quote, end quote. The game is launched, the money's made, secondary players jump on the bot, they pre-plan everything, how to make money. I mean, CoffeeZilla has a 3-hour podcast to explain the different opportunities within this. There's bad players. They can't find many developers. We talked about how hard it is to get developers. What they get is people with criminal records, et cetera, bad actors, as we all know. Is that something that is now, thrown mud across every project within this space? And if so, how do you get back that trust from the general public?
Yeah, I think
one word.
It
Yeah.
It does make it harder. I think it will take time. I think, as Anil said, that there'll probably be one amazing game. People perhaps don't realise it's kind of Web3 until they're addicted to it. They love it, and it will just get more and more mainstream. And I think it is every day. But yeah.
I'd say, let me give you an example. Our game's called Blast Royale. There's actually a game called Burst Royale that's not a game. That's a complete copy of our game. They copied our Git book. They even took my co-CEO's image and made a LinkedIn profile of it and a Twitter handle. And if you go to Burst Royale, it says that the game is available on PC, which it's not. It will ask you to install an executable. And if you install that executable, any NFTs that you own in your MetaMask wallet will be taken. So yes, you have massive scammers. It's a huge problem. We've also had people in our game that have had their accounts compromised and they've lost their items. And unlike Web2, we can't just give that player their items back and say, don't worry, we got you, we understand, because these are like real items on the blockchain. So that is a huge learning process. We try and get around it with videos. I think everything you say is right. That's one of the dangers of Web3, and I think ultimately that will be things like regulations and laws which will blatantly come into place in the next couple of years that will make it not as free as it is now, but maybe make it more standardized. I think that's an entire conversation on its own, so I'll stop rambling.
That was excellent. No, fantastic. The doom and gloom behind us, I'd love to hear some future predictions or good things in the project pipeline that you're excited about, other than the game being on iOS. Is there anything you're excited about right now that you'd love to share with our audience, which is growing by people coming in and out? Thank you. And I have 5 minutes, so we'll make it quick.
So, I mean, we're going to focus on Web2 again. So we are really focusing on the Android stores. I think that there's a market that it's not really being tackled, like, the Xiaomi, Huawei, and all those stores. It's amazing the amount of users that are actually using the device stores. There is a lot of daily active users there that the average publisher is not really focusing on. As well as in, I think the merger of Iron Source and Unity is going to be a big thing for the Unity for the industry. For the mobile industry, of course. So I think in the next 6 months, seeing how they together will become maybe one big shark is going to be very interesting for us.
Fantastic.
I would say there are actually some good Web3 games already out there or coming, and they will come out this year, and I think that will give the entire space a big lift.
Brilliant.
I would like to add a few things. Generative AI, I think a lot of newly established studios with low resources can definitely use it up in pre-production levels to feature art creation. And Web3 gaming requires a lot of that content creation to market it back to your community, so that can be used a lot as a tool, and we're seeing those usages. Secondly, a lot of talented teams working on launching their games, which have been under development in stealth for the last year. So we will see a lot of those coming out. And funny fact, Gabriel Layden from Machine Zone doing a free mint for his upcoming game during Super Bowl ads. So that's going to be a funny watch.
For us, kind of the merger of Web2 and Web3, just kind of that middle point where the mass onboarding can happen.
Fantastic. I hope you can all join me by giving a big round of applause to our panel. Thank you. That's it. So we have time for one question. I'm getting the signal for one. Has anybody got any questions? We have one question, going once, going twice. Yes, sir, with the T-shirt. Do we have a roving mic? I can...
We've got a mic coming your way.
Hi, thank you. Adam from Formation Games. Question to Anil, actually. I've been around a lot of the Web3 talks, and probably the one thing most people agreed on was this idea that users love the concept of ownership, like owning their asset, being able to sell it. You had a different view from that. Could you elaborate a bit and maybe talk about what you think the users' main benefit that they will get if it's not ownership?
I think the reason why players don't really care is that there's hundreds of games out there right now where you just buy something from the store and you own the asset, and no one's really cared about trading with anything else. Yes, people give examples of World of Warcraft, people would sell items to one another, Diablo Auction House, but these are like the niche. That's not mainstream gaming. If someone plays FIFA, Ultimate Team, they open up and then Mbappe, they don't really care that they can sell it on or anything like that. This could change in the future, but just realistically, that is not like, oh, I'm buying this game because of that reason. I think the people that will say that to you will be the people that are NFT enthusiasts and basically degens that see the opportunity of what can be made in terms of the financial gains. I think that could change in the future. For example, I think like TCGs are probably a really good example of where being able to buy and sell your items really makes a lot of sense, because you'll be able to build decks a lot faster, and there could be value, and it's like real life Magic the Gathering. But yeah, we could talk about it a lot more. But I think that it's not, in my opinion, I've just seen real players, they don't care about it. And these are people that play the game every day, and that's not the thing they do. What they do like is being involved in the community, as you said, and being able to influence where the game will go. And if your NFTs allow that, then that's a slightly different conversation.
Fantastic.
I think we'll probably need to wrap it up there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.